I'm Dr. Joseph Briggs of Salem, and it is with great regret that I say that my actions have led to the deaths of 20 innocent people. But maybe I should take a step back. I opened my offices in 1692, when a series of trials were held to sentence accused witches in Salem Village. These trials were driven not by conclusive evidence, but by mass hysteria and a little chemistry. At the time my study was superficial. I didn't have the scientific knowledge to stop the deaths of those innocent of witchcraft. So I, with great guilt, acknowledge my role in the trials. I hope that this video will serve as a warning to future generations to avoid witch hunts. I intend to document some of the real reasons why witch trials raged in Salem and in Europe before it. The accused may still be alive today if the community as a whole had been better scholars of chemistry. For example, at first we believed that special potions gave the accused witches satanic powers. Looking back, it's hard to understand why we would believe such a superstition. But in a way, these chemical cocktails many of the accused used did lead to their accusation. A quick look at the demographics of the accused in both Europe and America shows a distinct slant towards poor elderly women. In Salem, conspicuous examples of such women would have been Sarah Good or Sarah Osborne. Such women were often widows with no remaining family. They weren't able to work and unable to bear children. To the villagers, they had outlived their usefulness. As a result of their poverty, these women often found work as herbalists, handling plants such as nightshade, mandrake, henbane, foxglove, parsley, hemlock, and thornapple, willow, meadowsweet, and wild celery. These herbalists might use these plants in a variety of ways. They might prescribe them as parts of medicinal remedies to villagers, or they might use them as flying salves, potions they believe would allow them powers of witchcraft. These flying salves would be often applied to the thinnest parts of the skin, where it would be absorbed more easily. This method of application was likely the source of the classic depiction of witches sitting astride brooms. If only we had known that these plants contained members of the group of compounds known as alkaloids. Though their effects are highly varied, alkaloids are physiologically active in humans, usually affecting the central nervous system. Some are toxic like conine, hallucinatory like atropine, or coma-inducing like scopolamine. Another alkaloid similar to atropine is cocaine. It's found in the coca plant. Cocaine was at first thought to be a wonder drug, but its symptoms as a stimulant causing euphoria, addiction, and depression were well known thousands of years ago by the early residents of South America, who would often use them as stimulants. It's not hard to imagine a situation in which a herbalist could be accused of witchcraft for unintentionally causing death or illness due to the properties of their medicines. The symptoms of poisoning for these alkaloids would seem dramatic and inexplicable, and many confused villagers would turn to witchcraft as an explanation for what they were seeing. A triggering event in the witch hunt of Salem was an incident in which several teenage girls were found dancing in the forest. Afterwards, two of the girls, Betty Paris and Ruth Putnam, fell into a coma. Their symptoms seemed consistent with the influence of alkaloids such as scopolamine. I have a file here from my examination of Ruth Putnam. Here we go, Putnam. This is the preliminary report of my investigation. Eye, dilation of the pupils, blurring of near vision, dry eye, heart rate, tachycardia, cardiac arrhythmias, lung, dilation of bronchioles, secretion of dry mucous membranes, the stomach and the intestine, motor activities, secretory function, urinary bladder, difficulty in urination, skin, sweat, skin flushed, hot, dry, and scarlet, body temperature rose. Mouth, dry mouth, difficulties in swallowing first. Brain, restlessness, fatigue, headache, hallucinations, delirium, followed by coma. Their symptoms were consistent with the influence of such alkaloids, as I've mentioned. When the daughters of the minister and one of the wealthiest and most respected members of the community fell ill, the public eye was sure to turn to witchcraft. Unable to find an explanation, the community would allege that herbalists like Sarah Good or Sarah Osborne were bewitching the children of the community. Likewise, the herbalists would feel the effects of their alkaloids in their flying salves. Their hallucinations may have been vivid enough for them to actually believe they flew, or commune with the devil, which added fuel to the accusations against them. In Europe as well as Salem, a confession was considered the most definitive proof of witchcraft. Confessions, of course, were not genuine, but brought about by pressure from the accusers and from their own vivid hallucinations. Also important to the witch trials were the ergo-alkaloids, commonly found in the Claviceps purpura fungus. This fungus is known to infect grains such as rye, wheat, and barley. The alkaloid ergonovine within the fungus causes the disease ergotism, or the holy fire, in humans. This disease is characterized by spontaneous abortions, convulsions, seizures, diarrhea, lethargy, manic behavior, hallucinations, distortions of the limb, vomiting, twitching, crawling in the skin, numbness in the hands and feet, and eventually gangrene. The well-known synthetic alkaloid lysergic acid diethylamide, which is more commonly known as LSD, was first created from the alkaloid ergotamine by Albert Hofmann in 1938. Its chemical similarities to the alkaloid ergine are notable in this file. Yes, here. The structure is obviously similar. Its chemical similarities and hallucinogenic properties are well known, including by Hoffman himself. In testing the chemical, he experienced what we would call a bad trip. He reported visual hallucinations, paranoia, an intense restlessness and paralysis, incoherent babbling, a fear of choking, an out-of-body experience, and the visual perception of sounds. The ergo fungus thrives in the damp storage used in Salem Village, and easily spreads to a whole batch of grain. A village such as Salem would likely be shocked to see more and more people demonstrating these symptoms, and begin to wonder if their village was somehow singled out for misfortune, especially if adjoining villages were unaffected by the disease. Additionally, the poor or elderly women of the villages wouldn't have had the money to buy grain at the local markets, leaving them conspicuously unaffected by the disease which plagued the rest of the village. The villagers would believe that such herbalists were bewitching them. It's interesting to note that many of the alkaloids used by the so-called witches have become medicine used today. Digoxin, for example, is a cardiac glycoside similar to digitoxin, which is extracted from the foxglove plant. It is now used for the treatment of heart conditions like arterial fibrillation. Salicylic acid from the willow tree has long been used for pain relief, and it's found in aspirin today. Also used for pain relief is codeine. Benzocaine is used as a local anesthetic. Chloroquine is used as an anti-malarial agent. Risperidone, used for the treatment of high blood pressure and as a tranquilizer, is isolated from the Indian snakeroot plant. Atropine is used by ophthalmologists for pupil dilations. It is also used for resuscitations and as an antidote for some poisons. Scopolamine is used to prevent sea and motion sickness and also irritable bowel syndrome. Today, ergo vasoconstrictors are used as treatment for migraine headaches, postpartum bleeding, and as stimulators of uterine contractions in childbirth. Alkaloids are still being used, or misused, today. I would hope that no more witch hunts be held, be they against supposed witches or any other group. Our leaders shouldn't fall to mass hysteria, or be swayed by flimsy evidence. They need to be intelligent and reasonable people with scientific knowledge. And they need to surround themselves with people who are similarly experienced. Maybe then Salem's witches will be redeemed. Dr. Joseph Griggs, signing out. Actually, I'm Joshua Ode. I'm a sophomore at Jones College Prep in Mr. Lesneski's third period chemistry class. This has been my individual service learning project on Napoleon's Buttons, Chapter 12.